When you wake up well-rested on a great mattress, everything becomes clear.
I do make everything about me.
Things you missed when you were tired finally reveal themselves.
That meeting could have been an email.
It's the President's Day sale at Mattress Firm. Save up to $500 on select Tempur-Pedic adjustable mattress sets and get a $300 gift toward pillows and more, all with free and fast delivery. The right mattress matters. We'll find yours. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to your post-match Raw on Anfield Index Pro, podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev Downey, and joining me to give their immediate reactions to Liverpool 1, Chelsea 0 in the Carabao Cup Final from Wembley are Dave Hendrick and Jim Boardman. The first of the prizes available in the bag in the most dramatic way possible, Dave. It was an afternoon of very strong emotion. I don't think I've ever been as pissed off. And also, I don't think I've ever... I was so happy when Virgil scored that second one. I think I almost may have passed out. I had a rush of blood to the head. It was intense. What an afternoon.
Yeah, I said this to you and Jim before we went live. I haven't simultaneously enjoyed a game less or more in my life. Absolutely incredible. I said it on Twitter. I've genuinely never come away from watching Liverpool play prouder of a group of players than I am right now, because what we saw was Liverpool up against all the odds. 7 starters unavailable, not even making the matchday squad. 8 academy graduates, 9 if you include Harvey Elliott in the matchday 20. And to be fair, Trev Downey isn't even an academy graduate because he's 16. Like, just to put into context, Trev Downey was 8 years of age when Jurgen joined the club. And today he stood on the Wembley steps and got himself his first career medal. We lose Gravenberch early on to a nasty tackle. Now, an accidental tackle, but a nasty tackle that should have at least resulted in a yellow card. We have a perfectly good goal ruled out because reasons and wanting drama. We have to empty the bench and bring on Bobby Clark, James McConnell, Jayden Danns, and Jarrell Quansah. These are all 20 and under. Conor Bradley and Harvey Elliott started the game 20 and under. Ryan Gravenberch is 21. That's 7 lads 21 and under playing for us in a final up against a club that has spent over £1 billion in 18 months. And yet, when the chips were down, when it went to extra time, when you thought this might be where their quality and the more money they spent, this might be where they tell, it was the kids. It was Bobby Clark and Jayden Danns and James McConnell who stepped up and put in fantastic performances in that extra time, playing years above their age, like properly mature professionals. And 118 minutes, Costa Simicas with a gorgeous corner, Virgil with the perfect run. And it's that perfect corner goal, the front post glancing header that bounces and goes away from the keeper, and the camera angle is perfect. You see the keeper flailing, and like you, Trev, I nearly passed out. I struggle to find words to describe Jurgen Klopp right now, because no other manager is getting that result with that collective of players. No other manager is having that much faith in that collective of players. Other managers would have just said, you know what, fuck it, we'll keep McAllister on. We'll keep Connor Bradley on, we'll keep Gakpo on, and we'll just ride it out and we'll see what happens. But not Jurgen. Bobby Clark, on you go. James McConnell, on you go. Jayden Danns, on you go. Go out and make names for yourself, lads. No other manager has that faith in young lads. This is an incredibly special day to be a Liverpool fan.
I think that's a great point, Jim, to bring you in on, because it is the uniqueness of the situation. Dave's outlined it really nicely there. But you can talk about who's the greatest manager of them all while you look in the mirror. If all you want, you can talk about your prissy Guardiola and his trophy haul. You can talk about Jose Mourinho and his sort of us against the world man management stuff. But none of them have done that type of thing that we saw this afternoon, which, as Dave outlined, is wrangling a group of inexperienced lads over the line in that way. Now, obviously, his star man was the guy who is absolutely central in winning the game. It's lovely to see Captain Virgil van Dijk lift the trophy. It will be even more lovely to see him lift a few more. And he just looks right doing it, Jim. Everything about this looks right. It kind of just breaks your heart to think that, you know, we only have a set amount of this type of crack left. But it's truly unique. I don't think, as Dave says, I don't think there's another club in the world where that happens, what happened this afternoon, because it seemed almost crazy. And McConnell, but after a couple of minutes, McConnell striding around like he's some sort of midfield maestro once he got his bearings. It's remarkable stuff. Jayden Danns could have got a goal for himself. What an afternoon, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, I was trying to think what it puts me in mind of what it must have felt like to the other side, and what it must feel like, not just for today, not just in the context of today, but for City and Arsenal looking on. We're like the fucking Terminator or something. No matter what happens to us, we just like, off we go, we'll bring another one on. You know, we've had loads of injuries, so what? We find some kids and they'll come on, and you know what? They'll play out with the skin, and it's just been immense watching how good we've been. And I think in last week's Scouts and Tommies, me and Jay were talking about Virgil and saying, and this wasn't trying to have a go at Hendo, but we've got a proper captain. And I'm thinking like back to when I was seeing Phil Thompson as captain and Alan Hansen as captain, not just because of the position, but, you know, Emily News as captain. Captains who really were captains, who really led the team, they led by example. You knew that they'd be still in there fighting right till the end. And I mean, Virgil just went and did exactly that today. And I think the prompt for me thinking that with Virgil was seeing him score that goal in midweek, which was just against Luton. And this is another aspect of today which might sort of, people don't realise. There's a thing about being a Liverpool fan, and I just think other people who are outside of our bubble, if you like, and it's a lovely bubble to be in, don't understand what it's like to be a Red. And they slag Jurgen off for that time he did the fist bumps after West Brom, and they slagged him off a little bit for doing them against Luton. They don't understand what it means in these moments and what these things are all about. And today, doing the fist bumps, I mean, God, they'd probably complain about that as well, but let them. I just have to extend what I said about Virgil being a proper captain. We've got a proper manager. You know, these are names that we can put alongside those greats.
I wanted to get into that with you. I just saw your tweet about how it was a proper captain moment, the idea of sharing the trophy, because, you know, in the greater scheme of things, who gives a shit? But it will rub some people the wrong way and whatever. But why did you think that was particularly important? What did you like about that idea of the joint trophy lift, which is a very unusual situation?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I saw it was when, I think, was it Redknapp, and I can't even remember, years ago in 2001 when Redknapp was injured and he got to joint lift one of the trophies, and it just felt a bit wrong back then. But this time it felt right. And I think if I'm going to be critical, it is, no, you shouldn't be doing that, because this isn't his last chance to win a trophy. We could have another 3 yet, but I get where you're coming from. So maybe we've got to make him joint lift all of them. But I think that's just a shout out from Virgil, that we wouldn't be sat here today celebrating what we're celebrating and looking back at what else we've celebrated. Exactly. And how close we've come against teams who are using, let's just say, less than sporting methods to win things. You know, we know all about that. We wouldn't be where we are today without Jurgen and what he's done. It's Jurgen that, whatever he does, whatever his job is, whether he's not the man who does all the coaching, whether he's not the man who does all the finding the players, he's the man who brings it all together and gets them out there believing in themselves. Because there were players today who were dead on the feet and they kept going. There were young lads who must have been I'm not being funny. When we played, Rodgers was our manager. We played at Wembley a few years ago. Did we play Villa? I can't even remember what the game was. And we looked nervous.
Villa semi-final.
Yeah, and we was nervous. From the second we came on the pitch, we looked nervous. We were shitting ourselves. Every single one of those players just wasn't ready for that big occasion. Today we had kids who need a note off the mum to be off school tomorrow playing. Like, it didn't matter to them, you know, and this is just something about him. He's just such a leader of men. And, you know, I think in my tweet, I said both of them are proper leaders, and that's what they are. You've got your leader on the pitch, your leader off the pitch. Even in extra time, he's finding time to have a laugh and a joke with Tsimikas and hug him. It must be amazing to just have that knowledge that your manager's got that belief in you and that person, you know, and that willingness to let you go and have a go. And once you've done that, once you give that belief in your players, they'll give it everything and they'll believe in themselves. And every single one of those players did today. And you look on the bench and around the bench, the players who couldn't even maybe make the bench, they weren't fit enough. You know, we could have had another 11 players today, first team recognised players that other clubs would love to have. And that's how bad but yet everyone who went out there today had belief, including the young lad Dan, who'd only played his first game a few days ago. It says everything about this club and about this manager at the moment. Let's not try and think about too far ahead and what it might mean next, but my God, it sets us up for something good as well.
Jayden Dan's played 43 minutes today, including stoppage times. He has school tomorrow. He only turned 18 a month ago. He's got school tomorrow. Trainiani has school. Like these boys have school tomorrow. I would hope their parents will give them the day off. But that just shows the absurdity of where we are in terms of injuries. And yet what this team is achieving. Jim's right. We're like fucking zombies or something. This is unbelievable.
Let's extrapolate out a little bit, because it's going to seem as if it's sour grapes. It's going to seem as if it's kind of stamping on the grave of Chelsea. It's not meant as that at all. It's more to elevate the achievement that we're trying to talk about here. Can we just for a moment focus again on the fact that lot should have battered the shit out of us today in terms of the comparative value and experience of their squad? They should have absolutely destroyed us. They got nowhere near doing that. It was a lovely kind of even game. The stats are kind of mental looking at the stats. As we had 24 attempts to their 19. We had 11 on target to their 9. We had 54% of the ball to their 46. The passes are really even. Well, no, they're not actually. We had 689 to their 587 and 84% of our accuracy to their 79%. The yellow card is going to be a discussion that we'll have to have later on, and stuff like that. As I'm looking through these stats, I don't know what the XG is. I don't have it in front of me, but I will tell you this, and Dave, I will go to you first on this one. What makes the achievement all the sweeter is the fact that, you know, mid-table or no, they have lurched their way to a competitive domestic final, and they're up against a severely depleted team who have only got children on the bench. And when the children came on in the extra time period, almost a gesture, you could interpret it as throwing the whole thing away, if depending on what narrative you want to look at. Liverpool were dominant in the extra time period with the young lads on the field. The attitude was immense, but it does very much contrast with the attitude of these so-called superstars. This is where I want you to lean into it. It makes the achievement all the greater because these players are world-renowned and cost Todd Bowley a lot of cash.
Our entire match day 20 cost somewhere in the region of about 290 million. The two lads they had in midfield today cost 220 just between them. Bit of quick maths, their squad looks to me like it cost about 680 million all in. I could be wrong. It could be a little bit more. That's not including add-ons, so forgive me. But yeah, there's an enormous gulf in the amount of money spent on these squads. But I've said this for years. It's not how much you spend. It's how you spend it and how you develop players. And we are putting on a clinic over the last number of years in spending well and developing well. And it felt to me like, without question, we were clinging on a little bit in the last 15 to 20 minutes of normal time. It seemed like after the Virgil goal was disallowed, the wind kind of went out of our sails a little bit, and they had some really good chances. Now, you mentioned the XG. The XG philosophy is one person who puts out XG. Others have different ways of measuring it. Across the 120 minutes, he has it at Liverpool 2.6, Chelsea 2.61. So pretty much dead even.
Wow.
Literally dead even. But it felt like we came out in that extra time with a renewed vigor, with renewed energy in the legs. And much of that is those kids. Like, never underestimate the exuberance of youth, because those lads, Clark, McConnell, Dans, Bradley earlier in the game, Kwanzaa came on a little bit after, those lads, they seem to have been able to block out the fact that there's 80,000 people watching them play a game, and they're just playing with their mates, and they're giving it everything, and they're trying to impress the big Dutch fella at the back who's screaming at them, and the big German fella on the sideline who's screaming at them. Like, they've gone out and they've just outworked Chelsea. They've shown more desire than Chelsea in that second half. Now, you said you don't want to stamp on the grave. I'd piss on the grave of Chelsea if that football club ever folded. Can't abide. An undeniably terrible set of lads.
There'll be a queue.
Oh, there would, and it would be a long queue. The only queue longer will be the one for, well, I won't say it. She's already dead. We'll move past that. A dreadful set of lads, led by a captain in Ben Chilwell, by the way, who is, without question, a one-man parcel of cunts. His only notable interactions today, involvements in the game, were trying to start a fight with Conor Bradley and then mouthing off at Bobby Clark. Two kids who outplayed him in the game.
Picking on kids like a big, stupid bully. England's finest, isn't he?
Have some shame. Have some shame, Ben Chilwell. You're a £50 million footballer. You're the captain of your club on the day. This is the second time you've played Liverpool in just over a month, and the last time you were hauled off at half-time because your first half display was such a disgrace. So hang your head, Ben Chilwell, and fuck off. Anyway, back to laughing at Chelsea. It seemed to me like when we started to make the changes and Klopp was bringing on the kids, do you remember we played Arsenal in the FA Cup third round and we brought on McConnell and Clark? And it felt like there was an arrogance with Arsenal of, oh, they're bringing on kids, we're just going to win now. They're doing that because they don't want to play the replay. And you guys will have seen that clip that went round on social media where their fans were saying the same thing. It felt like that today with Chelsea, where, oh, they're bringing on kids, they're giving up. Like, we'll just play our football and we're better than them and we're good enough and we'll get a goal at some point. And sure, if it goes to penalties, we're more than comfortable going to penalties with them. But little did they know that Virgil was in no mood for penalties. See, Virgil had trophies to lift, and having been completely robbed of a perfectly fine goal in normal time that should have won the game, he wasn't going to let that hang, so he got us the winner.
Jim, I want to give you one more chance here before we get to our usual thing, because this is a final and there is the extra joy of actually having a pod in the press at the end of it, which is, of course, the name of the game. You get to these finals. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much magnanimity I'd have had, how much, oh, it's great to see the lads doing well kind of thing I'd have been able to do. I'd really been lurching through this podcast if we hadn't gotten the victory, because when you get to finally win the fucking thing, that's how it should be. That's how it's always been with our club in terms of intent, at least. By the way, you'll notice as well there that I made out as if I'm this neutral-minded podcast host, whereas I've been full of hate speech on Twitter about Chelsea earlier on. I'm trying to pull a fast one here, but I do want to get your take on that as well. The size of the achievement this afternoon is quite remarkable, and one of the things people say about winning the Carling Cup, or whatever it happens to be at any given time, the Carabao in this instance, is that it can lead to, or can lend a lovely winning momentum to a team who's going to go on and do more. And we've seen that in the past. Manchester City would be a good example of someone who just, they get their first win on the board and it's a nice kind of settler and we realize we're the ones who can lift the trophies or whatever. it might have that impact for us as well. So it feels even more significant because of that, as well as the lovely joy of it being against a shower of lads who really, really need to hang their heads going home this evening. Not just the likes of Chilwell, but the likes of Mikhailo Mudryk coming on, who's supposed to be world class. The likes of Nkunku coming on, and who had an opportunity. Surely, you know, you go and you seize your opportunity, you become the thing that you are purported to be. And all those other lads, especially the two lads in central midfield, the much vaunted pairing, both of whom we'd love to have at our club, or would love to have had at our club. It's very, very, it adds an extra level of satisfaction to this afternoon's events, Jim.
Yeah, it does. And I think we talk a lot about Liverpool. Some of our sort of cult heroes, if you like, are the players who, let's be honest, you'd never stick in a first 11, but they're the players that have given everything in the game. And you look back and you think, my God, I'm glad we had them around for when times were hard. You know, the Divock Origis, for example, you know, I can think of loads more players like that from down the years that have been cult heroes. Because what we need players who give everything. And if I was Chelsea and after all that money, it just proves money can't buy you everything. They spent so much money. I mean, one player that stood out to me today for a reason he wouldn't be keen on is Liverpool fans, generally speaking, don't boo ex-players. We tend to welcome them back to Anfield. They'll get a round of applause, and we welcome them back. We thank them for what they did for us, and for whatever reason they moved on. But there's one exception, and that's Raheem Sterling. And to show the kind of impact he had on the game, I think I only heard him get booed about 3 times. He sort of, he didn't do much at all. He was barely involved, considering, he's still young enough and should still be important enough to make a difference. And against us, of all people as well, you'd expect him to put more in. But the whole club, it's amazing. They've got, if you were playing sort of a console game and you'd got that manager and those players, you'd expect to win everything, wouldn't you? But the mid-table, the firmly ensconced in mid-table, and these young lads just taught them a lesson. And I think that's something, again, that Klopp's brought to us. It's not always about the ability. We've had some amazing players with loads of ability, but what he wants out of every player is for them to give the best. And I think that's happened today in spades with our lads. He's just given everything. I mean, there was times when it kind of, it's only the League Cup. I know people are going to say that. The critics will say that. But it's not the league. It's not only the League Cup. It's Trophy 1 that you're going for. It was only the League Cup when we won so many trophies in 2001. It was only the League Cup when we won the double that time when we won the league and the FA Cup. It was only the League Cup, so many other times. It's a trophy. You win things. And I can remember I grew up when Manchester United fans would be boasting about how great they were, and I'm looking around puzzled because they hadn't actually won anything as I was growing up. They'd won before I was born. They hadn't won anything for years. And then as they started to win things, I can remember some Liverpool player, don't even know which one he was now, but pointing out that the reason Manchester United kept winning things is because once they'd had that taste of winning some silverware, the fight and the reward you get for it, it makes them hungry for more, and you put that bit more in. And that can be so important today. This cup, it might only be the League Cup, but this is still a showpiece trophy in front of 800,000, in front of 88,000 fans, a massive stadium, loads of people watching online, on TV from all around the world. We're going to be going home with a nice new piece of silverware. They're going to have to change that Champions Wall at the training ground and outside the club shop because we've won a trophy. Those lads' names are going down in history. I don't care what, and I just know that the sour grapes from other people will be, it's only the League Cup. Shove it, you know what I mean? It's not only the League Cup.
It's also the context of it, Jim. Like, it's only the League Cup in a season where we're going for 4. It's only the League Cup in a season where we've got unprecedented injuries to our starting 11. It's only the League Cup when we're playing all of these academy kids. Like, it's one thing, an academy kid getting 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there when a game is won. These kids were being brought on today. The game was 0-0 with extra time to come. And Jurgen was like, yeah, you're ready for this. Go and do it.
Yeah,
like,
penalties, everything. He's like, you think he's like, in the commentary, he was all, can't believe he's taking these senior lads. I'm thinking, you know what? I am sure that Jurgen knows what these lads are like on pens. He knows he can say the right things to them if it does come to that. But of course, what you don't want to do is get it to that. And when you're saying about the young lads as well, I was at the League Cup game, the start of the season against Leicester. When we in that that was a kind of rotated squad. Curtis Jones played as a fullback, and I think Endo played that night, and he was sort of still getting into the team at that point.
Yeah.
The front three was Doak, Gakpo, and Jota. Kwanzaa played at centre back, and you might think then, this is a rotating squad. It's only the League Cup. The truth is, we've got to this stage of the season now, and for the final, we've basically had to do the same, but it's not rotated. It's who's fit. And there's no way you'd have put a rotated squad out for the League Cup final, no matter what you say, maybe except the keeper, if everyone's fit. And there's just something about these lads. And I think a lot of it's down to Klopp. It's down to us all being on the same, in the same location. We're all down at Kirby for the training, for the academy and the senior squad. And it's just that belief. I think there was a story that I think Klopp said that after the game the other day, Dan came up to him and said, "Oh, thanks, boss," about 20 times. And he is a proper leader, isn't he? And that is what's made us so good.
That's the thing. Jurgen breathes this into the squad, into the club. Like, I've said this before, and Jim alluded to it earlier. Like, we know what's coming. We need to enjoy every moment of this and lean into it all the way. But the other side of it is, today we saw Jurgen Klopp's legacy, which is the future of this club, which is a group of young players that are coming through our academy. And whenever a new manager takes over, these lads are already going to be able to say, well, I've played in a cup final, so you can put me in any situation, any scenario, and I'm good to go. This will do unmeasurable amounts for the confidence of Bobby Clark, Jayden Danns, James McConnell, Jarrell Quansah, Connor Bradley, Trainiani, even though he didn't get on, just being involved. Like, being involved in the matchday squad for a cup final at 16. By the end of the year, that fella might have 4 of the 5 medals worth winning. By the end of next year, he might win the Champions League. And then he can just retire and say, well, I've completed football. I'll go and do something else now.
I'm tempted to completely just derail the structure of the show and talk about random stuff, but we won't.
Can we quickly just do just address the elephant in the room, Trev? I feel like we're 25 minutes in here. We haven't addressed the elephant in the room here.
Which elephant is this, Dave?
Where did Pochettino leave the funeral procession he was clearly leading before he nipped in to watch the match? And is he going back out to bring them to the cemetery afterwards?
I hope so. He does have quite the funeral director look about him. That's quite the funeral director.
With that coat?
I don't know.
That coat looked good.
No, I felt a kind of sadness looking at Pochettino. He's clearly let himself go. He looks sad himself. He just looks like a lad who is very much one of life's nearly men. And
will he still be there for the wake? I don't know.
Who knows, Jim? But I'll tell you one thing. He dirtied his bib, I thought, in the lead up to this. And maybe there's some context if you watch the overall speech, but all that bullshit about, a little word, trying to play some stupid mind games about, Klopp's last season and referees not bowing to the emotion. Well, let's just say Chris Kavanagh certainly didn't fucking do that. We started with an 11 of Kelleher, Bradley, Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson, Gravenberch, Endo, McAllister, Elliott, Gakpo and Diaz. Nobody's idea of anything close to a Liverpool 11. We've already outlined and everybody already knows the incredible wealth of talent that is absent from that. But it was really only when you looked at the bench that you started to think, oh, wow, this could go very badly for us indeed. And we only have these kids to call on. And that ended up being very, very flawed thinking indeed, which is wonderful. Chelsea went Petrovic, Gusto, Disasi, Caldwell, Chilwell, Caicedo, Gallagher, Enzo, Palmer, Jackson, Sterling. Not a low-budget signing amongst them. And a very, very strong team. On their bench, they had Sanchez, who's, I think, making his way back from injury, Bettinelli, Chalobah, they had Gilchrist, they had Madueke and Mudryk and Nkunku, who all came on, and as well as Torinen, who I am completely unfamiliar with. we could just take that and have the usual conversations about it, but there's no point in the case of Liverpool because we had no choice in our lineup. What I would say, and maybe one last thing that we might address before we get into the details of the match, I can't be arsed doing a thing about Chris Kavanagh. He's just another one of these useless pricks. So, ref watch, Chris Kavanagh, like all the rest of the pricks. That's it. Another cop, basically, in a nutshell. I do want to just address the fact that Gravenberch got crocked. And the Gravenberch was brought off on a fucking stretcher, and that leaves us incredibly thin now. It's very, very cruel, and there was a lot of cruelty, I think, Jim, in the fact that most of us expected one of either Mo or Darwin to make an appearance in this matchday squad. Some people were hopeful that maybe our new boy from Hungary would make an appearance in the matchday squad. These are three lads you'd love to have in your team, and if one of them even was available, you would have thought you'd have been a bit more hopeful going into this. At least we can call on X, Y, or Z, one of them from the bench, and maybe we can turn something. But the fact that we didn't have it was very, very difficult. And now we've got this kid who's, I think, very much divided people. Some people have taken him up as a kind of cause célèbre. Some people have been excessively harsh on him. I like to think on this show we've been somewhere in between, although I did see one fucking Twitter gimp saying, "Oh, more shade about Gravenberch." That was his sole comment. Like, well done, piss off. But we're trying to be fair about it, and he's never going to get anywhere if he can't establish himself. And he had done a few bits and pieces recently, and he's starting a final. It's very cruel on this kid, and it's worth addressing at the start because we probably won't have time going through the match day or the match events because there's so many of them. It not only is it another kick in the face for this squad, but it's very, very tough, Jim, on this kid in particular. You know, just as he's trying to find his feet and make his way in the squad when he can actually get a game, it's sickening.
Yeah, and I think, you look at the team lineup. If I was going to predict it before the game, it would have been exactly as today, unless Dom or Salah or Darwin were fit, and then you'd obviously make those changes if they were fit to start. And as you say, you look at the team they're not in. You look at the bench. You think surely one of them's in. No, none of those three are in. And I think something about when you get into a squad in the modern game, it's not like the old days of being dropped and then you might never get in. You do get an occasional chance, and you've got to take it when you get it. And if anything, with Gravenberch, I wondered at times if he just thought he was, if we're being critical, almost as if he can just do what he wants, turn up, not listen. Yeah, Klopp's being good with him. He's letting him have chances. He's letting him play, even when Klopp had a choice. But today, another example of where there was very little choice. I would say whatever Gravenberch has done, the fact he's played longer and maybe has more experience as a first team player somewhere, maybe puts him ahead of some of the youngsters in such a big occasion. And it was a chance for him to do something. I think in the last few games I've been able to find fault with him, and I've been able to praise him. There's been a bit of a mixture more with him in recent games. And if I was the manager, I'd be looking at that and saying, here's what you did wrong, but never mind that, here's what you did right. Let's do more of the do right, which earlier on in the season I wouldn't have got. And it's so cruel because, anyone speaking to him would have said to him, look, you're in the team right now because all of these injuries, all of these other players aren't available. If Dom was fit, you wouldn't be in the team. If Curtis was fit, you wouldn't be in the team. But while you are in the team, do your best, and you may actually make life hard for the manager. And as you say, the way you went off, and it was just so frustrating. Let's not go on about the ref. It's just, it was an awful challenge. It was quite clearly an awful challenge. And with the time it was taken to do the treatment, there's plenty of opportunity there to just have a quiet word and say, go and have a look at that. Because let's face it, if the ref was told to go and look at the screen because it could have been a red card, he still could have just given a yellow. He didn't even give a yellow. And
no, they can't, Jim. He can't.
Can they not?
On the review, he can't give a yellow.
So he cannot. Right. Okay.
It's a shame because he was playing well as well. Like, he started brightly. He was getting involved. He was pressing well. He was closing well. He looked like he was well up for it today as well.
Maybe that's why you got, and that's the other worry I think actually as well. Maybe one of the reasons he got injured is because he was getting involved more.
Yeah,
he wasn't sort of standing back and staying out of the way.
Into that, isn't he? Like, with that, look, it's a nasty challenge, but it's not. I don't think it's a red card challenge, but it's definitely a yellow. Like, it's definitely a yellow. And like, in fairness to Caicedo, he did, before Gravenberch was put on the stretcher, he did go across to him and apologise and all the rest, but Klopp was going fucking bananas. But part of it was, the ref plays the advantage, acknowledging that it's a foul. Gakpo loses the ball immediately. So how have we not gotten a free kick? What advantage did we get from that?
Yeah. That's what made it completely difficult to understand, and it just I do feel sorry for him, and it's not something we're going to be focusing on the negatives. It just to acknowledge it lightens an already incredibly lightened squad further, and it does set that kid back. You're not going off on a stretcher if it's not going to take a few weeks, is what I'm saying. That's.
I think it's he was on crutches, wasn't he, afterwards as well? Which could be, Curtis wasn't on his crutches by then, and we wondered if Curtis had lent him his crutches.
Well, you saw the shots of the walking wounded arriving at Wembley. Yeah. Fuck me, Trent in a leg brace, Curtis in a space boot, and it's just like, holy shit, what have we done to deserve this? Hopefully it will all start to right itself. Let's get into the details of this wonderful game before we get too into it. And Jim, you and I will start with the opening part of the game. There's nothing really of note to say until there was a little bit of pressure building by us on about 5-6 minutes. I thought Caicedo should have picked up his first yellow for a foul on McAllister around about that period too, 6-7 minutes. On 8 minutes, Robbo puts in this kind of looping cross. It was taken on, I think, by Diaz, but Cody's lurking at the back post in a far better situation, and the chance goes away because it kind of bounces off the top of our man's head. In these opening goings, I thought it was notable that Bradley and Harvey Elliott were very bright and buzzing around, that Endo was very bright and buzzing around. And I've retweeted a very good Irish journalist, Declan Lynch, who has said that in a tweet there, very much tongue-in-cheek, Endo, best player in the world right now, with a question mark. And I've just said, yeah, Dex, right on it here, because I think that guy can't get enough flowers. I want to get them in early and often in our report here on this match. Absolutely loving what this lad brings, loving the fact that he's found his combative self, that he knows how to get a foot in now. He's brilliant with his body position for the most part. He's brilliant with his forward passing for the most part. It's just great to watch the lad do what he does. There is a corner and a free kick for them on the 12-minute mark, and we deal well with both. Mac has a long shot after a pretty great Endo tackle on 30 minutes to set it up. And on 13 minutes again, Luis Diaz has a shot, very well saved, after a decent Cody Gakpo intercept and pass into him. Chilwell then on the sideline takes out Conor Bradley. I would have thought that should be a yellow. It ends up being a free on the right-hand side, and we get nothing from that. There are chances then on 20 minutes. It's a world-class save from Queevy and Kelleher, a shot from Palmer, and then a world-class block by Endo that literally none of the Sky twats mentioned until after the game. It's like they couldn't even see it. It's like they couldn't even bear to mention all the way through Carragher, Neville, the commentary team, the pundits. And I don't blame Danny Sturridge because it's not his place to do it, but you would imagine the commentators will be constantly harking on about the fact, it's Drury in this case, that Liverpool are so depleted. No, they didn't mention it. And they all failed to notice this incredible intervention by Endo on the 20-minute mark. And what happened was it actually gave them a little bit of a lift, these couple of attempts, despite the fact that it's a world-class save from Queeveen and then a world-class block by Endo. They got their tails up a little bit, and it was at that point, and this is where we'll pause it, you and I, that there is that potential ankle breaker from Caicedo on Gravenberch. Dave said he reckons it's accidental, and I understand that. We've also seen our own player go off for a lesser tackle in the shape of Curtis Jones. It's another yellow at least, you would have thought, but we understand now the details of playing the advantage and all the rest of it. It seems like a daft rule.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, Over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Grabs off on a stretcher and Joe Gomez is on, and that's on the half-hour mark, and that's a good time for you and I to stop and look back at that opening half hour. What did you make of it? Anything in particular you want to pick out about it?
The first thing I wrote down was just before kickoff, because the Sky cameras have got themselves right inside the Liverpool huddle, and Virgil was saying, "Let's fucking go for this," or something along those lines, which I don't really expected. And there wasn't an apology for anyone who might have been offended. So if you were offended, what a shame you didn't get an apology. But that again, you know, great leader. That, I mean, I'm sure all captains come up with the same kind of shit in those huddles, but you feel like, you know, he is a good leader for the team, and off we go. I thought there was a couple of times with cards early on. I thought there should have been cards. Colwell on McAllister early on, maybe 4 or 5 minutes in. That one from Caicedo a minute later or something. I'm thinking, come on, that's 2 in short succession now by these lads. You've not even pulled them to one side and given them like a good lecture. And I understand, you know, cup final, maybe the first 5 minutes you don't want to card anyone, but at least pull them to one side and have a word. It's not. And you're just encouraging more of it from them, which is, to my view, kind of how the sort of game panned out.
Yeah.
About getting carded, you know?
Yeah. That's the thing. It does set a little bit of a tone, and like you, I don't want to spend ages talking about Kavanagh, but it is mismanagement of the game, and it leaves us in a way very vulnerable when we're already, like, I can imagine things like that are driving Klopp psychologically insane, Jim, you know, because you're just thinking, holy fuck, everything's getting let go here. I'm going to get another player crocked. And he was right, because there was.
And if there was the same kind of lenience towards the end of the game when, you know, Liverpool are playing this knackered team with young kids having to fill in, players, you know, first-team players who have maybe played a lot more minutes than they should have done for the state they're in. You know, some of them, like McAllister, coming back from injury themselves not that long ago, you know, and he's just so card-happy. Straight away, Liverpool play does anything wrong, cards out. It was like he was on autopilot. You know, and if there was even the point, I mean, let's not go on about him. Let's not give him the pleasure of going on about him. I'm sure he's waiting to hear what everyone says, so we can get another sticker for his fridge from his mates at PGMOL. It's frustrating, but I think from us, I just thought, you know, we were pushing at them, and they were basically sitting back, weren't they, and waiting for us to come at them. And my worry even at that point was, as I've just mentioned, we've got these players who've maybe played more minutes than we'd like in consecutive games. We've got these young lads. We've got nothing on the bench to sort of come on after 60 and give it a bit of a shuffle round, you know, the usual way football is. And I'm thinking, how often have we watched finals at Wembley where there's a player on 80 minutes on the floor with someone pushing his boot back, you know, trying to get rid of cramp and all the rest of it? I'm thinking, are we going to last the whole game, considering? But we just carried on going at them. We didn't care. We can't change the way we play. We tried a couple of times in the game overall to sort of slow things down a bit, but we're quickly into our stride and doing things the way we do. Kelleher, yeah, I mean, that there wasn't just that moment, so that was one of the moments. And I think we've given Ali praise so many times. You know, it usually happens after Ali makes one of his rare mistakes. We point out how often Ali has saved us in games, how often he's won games because of his work. And I think, you know, there was certainly a point in the game today where I was thinking, if this goes our way, we could be renaming it the Queevervow Cup or something, you know, because he was doing so well. In the end, I don't think he stood out as much because so many other players did so well. But that's not because he didn't do well. It's just so many did. He would quite well have been man of the match, I think, if Virgil's goal, the first one, had stood, and that was how it ended. He was amazing. He was great to have him as backup. It's good to know we've got him there as backup if Ali does get injured. And as we said, I think last time I was on, we said for him personally, it's probably not the best place for him to be. But I reckon if this does end up being his last season for us, I mean, what a way to go out.
Yeah, he's become kind of, already synonymous with this particular trophy, and the fact that he was so good today. That save being, it's world class. Like I said, that's all it is. Simple as that. There's nothing else you can say about it. And he does a couple of other things which are in the same bracket before the end of the game. And Dave, you may want to dip back into that, and feel free to. I'm just going to walk you through the events between then and the end of the first half, which you can also clearly cherry pick then as well. Of course, we're starting now because the next thing that happens is they have the ball in the back of the net. It is Sterling who finishes it, and in the build-up, Jackson was marginally offside. Now, this was a tight call, and it was very unnerving. It went to VAR. I fully expected it to be given. It wasn't. It felt a little bit as if it was a bit of a weird one. One of the angles, the first one we saw, looked quite definitive. And then every other angle that was left on the screen for the remainder looked as if he was on. And that, I think, unless people are completely naive, is part of the dance. And I wish people would understand that. You're being manipulated in terms of how you're being led to think about a thing. It's not difficult to see. And if you can't see it, there's something wrong with you. And whether or not you're okay with that, I think says a lot about how you feel about the way the game currently is. I'm not okay with that. And it feels completely dishonest. And I just wish there was something more to it. We're going to get to a far more egregious example of it in the second half. Anyway, that's how this part of the first half starts. We see Matt getting away with a crazy square ball across the front of our box on 36 minutes, and we're very lucky there's not an interception. Robbo does fantastically well in the same minute to get a Gallagher pullback ahead of Cole Palmer, and Queeving's able to scoop up the ball that Robbo has intercepted. Tremendous covering by him. At this point, I've just written down Mike Dean needs fucking shooting. I just want that to be on the record, and then in brackets afterwards, so does Carragher. 39 minutes, Cody hits the base of the post with a tremendous header from a Robbo cross. Petrovic is stood there like a statue. He's nowhere near. He's just looking at it going in. If it goes in, it doesn't. It bounces, hits the base of the post, and goes away. 44, a great press by us ended with a Connor Bradley shot being blocked. And it's really heartening because after their little bit of tails up with their goal in the back of the net, we've come right back into it. There were 6 minutes out of that first half, and in it, the only thing I really noticed was the Chilwell versus Bradley thing. And I think at this point, Chilwell should be on his second yellow, but he seems to be a bit of a protected species. So if you want to dip back into anything from the first part that I spoke to Jim about, and do talk to us about the quite significant moments there that I've just outlined.
Yeah, I mean, the really frustrating thing in that first half is that, like, they should have had multiple yellow cards and weren't given any at all. Caicedo obviously should have gotten the yellow card for the challenge on Gravenberch, but he had a couple of others as well, like that were maybe not individually yellow cards, but surely they accumulate across the half, and the referees got to at one point say, okay, enough's enough now, yellow for you. Like you mentioned, Ben Chilwell should have been booked for the foul on Bradley. And then he gets involved with Bradley. And Neville, add Neville to the list of people that need shooting. Though he did slightly, ever so slightly, redeem himself second half. He clearly tries to start that row with Conor Bradley because Conor Bradley's a kid and Ben Chilwell thinks this is someone I can maybe throw off his game. But what he doesn't understand is, like, what Conor Bradley has been through in the last month is far more traumatic than you calling him names or pulling out of him.
Yeah.
And he's come back and he's shown an absolutely bulletproof mindset. So Conor Bradley is laughing in the face of this noted England international who got very upset with himself when Cody Gakpo, a bigger boy, came across and shoved him out of the way. And causes a big kerfuffle, and obviously, for some reason, Bradley gets a yellow card for Ben Chilwell being a prick, that's the really frustrating. Like, Bradley did nothing wrong in that situation. did nothing wrong other than stand his ground, while Chilwell was the complete aggressor and Gary Neville tried to make excuses for him. And yet both of them get booked. And like Mike Dean, I swear to God, Trev, talk about main character syndrome. Like, he just couldn't shut up in the first half.
And what does he offer? What does he offer? Literally nothing by way of insight.
He's never, ever going to go against the decision on field. Because if you go back, we'll get to it in the second half. I'll leave it for the second half. But like on the offside goal, it's quite clearly offside. But you see, the issue here is Sky have Americanized their coverage. And I don't say that as a dig at American people, but at American TV sporting events, they're trying to build the drama. Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own two-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin De Vries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye. Mike Dean said it very early during the check. There's an angle, because he had access to the angles that they were looking at. He said there's a side-on angle and he's clearly offside. You can go back and watch the footage. That's what he said. There's a side-on angle. He's offside. He did,
I remember, yeah.
And yet, then he's like, oh, you look at it from this angle. Oh, no, you've already told us, Mike, that he's offside. So we don't need to hear or see any more. We don't need to see replays from a really, really bad angle that isn't going to tell anybody anything because it's from well in front of the play.
Yeah, it didn't look offside from this onside camera back in the far side of the opposite.
Do you know what I mean? Like if you look at it from behind the goal, he doesn't look offside. Like, fuck. Jesus wept. And the thing with me, the first half, I thought we were really, really good for the first 25 minutes. And they've got a lot of good players. So they did settle in and they did start to have a good spell. But I thought overall in the first half, we were the better team.
Yes, it's hard to argue with that as a way of looking at it. It's not even LFC tinted glasses. It's just the way of it. And, you know, we're going to come back to, I think, all of the topics that we've raised there. So let's get straight into the second half. And Jim, maybe you and I'll start it. Pretty much straight from the start, we have an opportunity. There's a good break down the left-hand side, and Luis Diaz pulls the ball back into the box from which we get a corner. As the ball kind of breaks from that corner being taken, there's involvement from Conor Bradley, from Mac, from Cody, and Endo has a half volley that he kind of gets his foot around too much and hooks it well wide. It's good contact, but it's well off target. But at this point, you have to say, wow, that lad he's really doing well. It really kind of underlined for me what a lovely surprise unfolding his excellence has been over the last while, and how it may well end up being very central to further attainment this season. On 51 minutes, they did break down our right-hand side, and the ball came central to Enzo, who fluffed his opportunity, and Quevian was able to gather. It's a dangerous, dangerous opportunity. It comes across in stages, and Enzo's there in the middle, and he tries some sort of a back flick round the corner, Rabona nonsense, and anyway, Quevian's able to gather it up. It's a decent opportunity. They should have done better. Palmer has a long shot then soon after that, about 5 minutes later, which is a couple of yards wide. What worried me about it, Jim, was it was an easy enough approach run for the kid. He didn't have to show particular pace or skill, and we looked to be backing off, which always, it's probably my pet hate in football supporter existence. It's probably the most regularly screamed thing for me in the ground and my telly is go to the ball. And I may be old fashioned, but that's how I feel about it. On 57 minutes we get back into it a little bit. Harvey has a volley that's pretty acrobatically saved, and on 57 minutes as well, Luis Diaz drives a goal and drives an effort over the top. I thought again Gallagher should have picked up a yellow on 59 minutes, and we have the ball in the back of the net. You and I'll pause here because there's a lot to talk about this, and I'm sure Dave will want to jump in, so I'll give him an opportunity to do that. It's 59 minutes. It's Virgil van Dijk. It's an absolutely brilliant header from a Robbo free kick, while Chilwell had a handful of his jersey. Chilwell's fouling Van Dijk as he swats him away completely fairly, just by dint of his superior physicality, and directs his header beautifully into the goal. It's a nice delivery. It's a beautiful header. It's a perfect goal. Sky went round the houses trying to justify how this was ruled out by VAR. The official take is that Endo was offside as the ball was played, and then Endo became active. He blocked Colwill, who could possibly, in some quantum version of the universe, have influenced the play. It went as far as going to the monitor, when Chris Kavanagh understood then if it goes to the monitor, you have to do what the lads say, and the goal was ruled out. Now, there are two things here I want to point out. The first thing is, I'm lucky I still have a larynx left after the explosion of joy and roaring. I mean, it was fucking feral, Jim. I'll admit it. And I was just thinking, holy shit, this is absolutely glorious to see Virgil scoring this goal. And then I'm thinking, they can't possibly offside. Well, he's not offside. And then it was Endo. But Endo, what? Sky went to great lengths, my friend, to try and justify the decision. At half-time, they had company man Jamie Redknapp echoing the thoughts of company men Carragher and Neville, which was, well, he go. That's the zone of interest, or whatever the fucking phrase is.
The dropping zone. That's what he called it. But this is the thing. Mike Dean on the first replay said he didn't see a problem with it.
Yeah.
And then changed his mind as the review went on.
Yeah. So again, and I like I say, I do want to get your take as well, Dave. Start there, Jim. If there's anything else in the first part of that second half you want to mention as well, but do start there.
Yeah, I mean, just maybe as an introduction to this half, I thought after seeing Gravenberch stretch it off, I think our players sort of looked a bit, and maybe the not being a card for it, our players almost sort of felt, I don't know, we went flat for a little bit then, or whether it was Chelsea got a little bit buoyed by it, because you feel that when you see a player stretch it off after a tackle like that you're going to be, there's going to be some kind of punishments other than the team losing a player. And I don't know what it was. We just at that point, maybe lost a bit of belief, thinking, maybe we aren't Terminator after all. Maybe we're not zombies after all. Maybe, maybe that was one injury too many. And I don't know, just seemed to be a spell towards the end of that second half where we weren't looking at our best. But then just before half-time, we started to kind of remember ourselves again. And I feel the second half we did that again. I mean, they still had chances, don't get me wrong, but we're being ourselves. We're being this team that wants to go out and win games and believes that we can, and doing all that we can to try and do so, which, culminating after, I've written down as well about, there was on the 58th, 59th minute, ends in a foul on Matt. How many cards? None. It's going over and over again. But then a minute later, that's all forgotten because Virgil gets that ball in the back of the net. And same here. I think the reason my voice is probably a little bit croaky now is more for that goal then than the one later on, although it was close.
It was close.
It was, because if be honest, and we'll come back to that later, in some ways, even for that goal, with the second goal, I was still a bit held back on, can I celebrate, or are they going to find something wrong? Because I honestly, what could you find wrong with that first one? I could not think. The justification they were trying to give in the end was that Endo was blocking somebody off who might have been able to get to Van Dijk, which was, for one, putting far too much faith in the Chelsea player who might have got to Van Dijk. And another, if that kind of thing is a block, and that kind of thing is part, is enough to make that offside, etc., etc. Why aren't more players done for blocking in the box anyway? And I think Virgil was having that conversation with the Manc referee a little bit later on at our next corner. Because you see it all the time. Players are blocked from going for the ball. Players are always being blocked. He just felt like it was so petty. I mean, the traffic warden union would have been embarrassed by that one. It was so looking down to the letter of the law and just finding something possibly. This is equivalent of a traffic warden getting a tape measure out just to measure if you're a millimetre too close to the junction or something, so they can give you a parking ticket. That's actually something that comes to mind because years ago round Anfield, you sometimes saw traffic wardens actually doing that, which is mad. But that's what we had today with these referees. Like the ref on the pitch was happy with it. The assistants on the pitch were happy with it. Yet somehow the guy back in Stockley Park could have just let that go. It wasn't blatant. I don't think there would have been a single complaint from anyone about it if that goal had
Chelsea
stood.
player complained.
No.
Even Colwell, who was the one that got blocked off, never complained about it.
Because it's part of the game and it's been
Literally.
it's a sanctioned part of the fucking game. This is
Arsenal do it every single game.
Gary Neville, the little wanker, was talking about how, I've been saying that's probably the kind of, kind of clever thing that Liverpool should be doing, because he understands, like everybody else, that it's a sanctioned part of the fucking game.
And it's not just a recent thing, because you can go back years and years ago and watch Mourinho's Chelsea the first time round and watch John Terry and players like of his ilk scoring from corners, and every single time they do things like that. Like, the thing for me on this is, if Colwell had really wanted to get towards that ball, Endo standing still, doing nothing else other than standing still, isn't stopping him. He'd have gone round him or he'd have gone through him. But he didn't. He just ran into him or took a step into him and stopped and kind of gave him a hug and never once complained. We were robbed of a perfectly good goal. Because some little nerd in Stockley Park who's never kicked a football in their entire life, who's never stood on a pitch, who's probably never touched a blade of grass in their life, has decided that that's a foul. But Carragher, I thought in this moment redeemed himself a little bit because he wasn't letting it go with Mike Dean.
He was fuming with Mike Dean.
He was, because Mike Dean changed his stance on it. Mike Dean started off in one spot where he was saying, that's fine, that happens. And then all of a sudden, he was on the other side and talking about drop zones and bullshit. And then Carragher said to him, well, what about when a keeper gets blocked off? Is that a foul? Oh, not every time. Well, fuck off.
In other words, it depends on what we fucking feel like. And
depends what we feel like, Jim.
Yeah, that's it. It's exactly.
Literally.
It's like,
it depends on whether or not the TV people want us to give it or not, basically, because they want the drama.
And that's quite a sentence you've just said there, and it's exactly where I find myself leaning. It's no surprise to people that I find myself leaning there, but if even, far more sort of detached, rational minds in terms of things like that, like both of you are thinking that as well, it's kind of it's a strange place to be. But we'll push on. We're not
just quickly on that though. I think just want to say quickly on that the PGMOL are allowed to be such jokes because the Premier League and the EFL let them. The EFL is an amazing. This trophy is full of history. It's been done down over the years. It's been devalued by lots of teams and different people over the years. That was an amazing game of football today. That was a great advert for the sport and for the EFL brand, if it wants to call itself a brand. They should be, at this moment in time, asking themselves whether they want to keep using PGMOL for that, because they're making them look like dickheads.
That's a great shout. That's a great shout. The second half of the second half, Dave, and it's not really the second half, but it's the next chunk of it, and I think it's probably what we should do, is where we see Nkunku coming on 65 minutes for Sterling. One of my favourite moments in the game was Robbo actually managing to escape a yellow from card-happy Kavanagh, despite kicking Gallagher 3 times in a row. Absolutely fucking wonderful. Oh, Jesus Christ. I've enjoyed the shit.
What I liked was Neville going, he's not normally like that, and Carragher going, no, he is normally like that.
Of course he's like that. What? By the way, I'm sorry, but again, not to just hound on every single thing. That just shows you exactly what the class and level of punditry Gary Neville has descended to. Like, what world are you in if you don't know that Andy Robbo is the rattiest fucker we've got on our team? There's something wrong with you.
By miles.
You
He's
just
the rattiest fucker in the league.
He gets to go to the games. It's not even like he's like,
exactly.
He's actually at the game, seeing it happen in front of him.
He's fucking hopeless. Such a company man at this stage. It's embarrassing. On 68, there is from a Gallagher corner, a ball that breaks to Disassi, who knees it over the top from a couple of yards out, and Queeving's able to, well, not quite over the top, but up in the air, and Queeving's able to come and claim it. Cody has a shot over the top after some great approach play by Luis Diaz. We're going to have to talk about Luis Diaz earlier on or later on, because I'm not sure that Luis Diaz was just cramping up. He was holding his tie. It didn't look good, and if he's fucked as well, we're in trouble. On 71, Clark came on for Bobby Clark came on for Conor Bradley, the first of the possibly big shout, or possibly not that surprising subs. Decent pressure from us on 74, but then on 75, Gallagher hits the post from a Palmer pass. Now, to me, I thought I heard a whistle blow immediately after that, and I thought it was going to be some sort of thing that ruled it out, but the commentators just kept going on and showing replays as if it was absolutely something that should have stood. So Dave, just briefly, I'm just going to get you to interject here. Did you hear that whistle? Was there anything? I
thought I heard a whistle as well. But they just seemed to play on. So
I guess what I'm saying is, in the vein of what we were speaking about, you wouldn't be surprised if Sky would just bullshit you. That was a perfectly good opportunity.
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially given the I might as well just say this now. Gary Neville's attempts in this game to hype up the English lads in the Chelsea team, Cole Palmer and Conor Gallagher, bordered on disgusting. At every opportunity, he took his time to dig into Fernandes, Caicedo, whoever else, and work it back round to more praise for Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher's cup final appearance today involved missing sitters and diving relentlessly and getting kicked 3 times by Andy Robertson. And that's what he did. He dived a whole bunch to win free kicks. In fact, in the first half, I don't think he did anything other than dive. And in the second half, he missed some sitters. And that's what he did on the day. So congrats to Conor Gallagher for that. And Cole Palmer, I mean, he looks a player. Like, he's clearly got talent and he gets himself into decent positions. But aside from 2 passes, maybe, he didn't impact the game at all. Like, he didn't impact the game at all. He dribbled past Robbo once, he put it through his legs and ran round him, and then Endo came in and crunched him.
He does bring out a brilliant save from Queeve, but
he does. Yeah, he misses a sitter. Yeah, because Queeve.
That's actually better. That's actually a better way of putting it.
Yeah, from his point of view, he missed a sitter. It's a brilliant save by Queeve, and I should have mentioned it when we were talking the first half. The endo block on the rebound is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's why I kept emphasizing how world class it is, because nobody fucking spoke about it.
And I was delighted. Karen, what was her name in the studio at halftime with Studge?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
She mentioned it.
Yeah,
no one mentioned it during the actual coverage of the game. Neville, Carragher, Mike Dean didn't even jump in to give us his thoughts on it. But she was the one that mentioned it. It is absolutely incredible, that block. But the save was great. Just while it's in the top of my head, I mentioned earlier how we were the better team for the first part, the first half, and then they were the better team. The Gravenberch injury, is, like Jim mentioned, is what changed it. But we didn't just make one change. It wasn't just as simple as Gravenberch went off and a player came on. Gravenberch went off. Bradley moved right back to right wing. Elliott moved right wing to right midfield, and Joe Gomez came in at right back. We changed all 3 lines with that one. So one substitution, one injury affected all 3 lines of us. And that, I think, is what threw us off for 10 or 12 minutes.
It absolutely did. And I don't want to be a prick here. I don't want to be that guy. But I'm just going to say that my response to Joe Gomez coming on was, well, I think we actually have 11 more effective footballers on the pitch now, and it didn't pan out like that immediately. It took some time for that to pan out immediately, or not at all.
Actually, sorry. We made four. It made four changes because Alexis moved from right side of midfield to left side of midfield, and Harvey went right side because Gravenberch had been left side. Yeah. So we changed four things for one substitution, which tells you exactly where we are in terms of squad depth right now.
And understandably, then that has a knock-on effect on how we're playing. We do see Bobby Clark getting very much into it. I thought he was great from the minute he came on, looking to be involved. We saw some very solid defending from Virgil on Gallagher, who was kind of in a good position centrally on 77. Joe Gomez has a shot the far end on the right-hand side after a lovely move. Possibly might have been a better option to pull it centrally, but then again, who was there? Mack and Konate get yellow cards back to back because Kavanagh, the prick, has found his cards at this point. 83 minutes, Gusto puts in a very dangerous cross and Kunku can't get there. At 85, Queeveen's out, Alisson Becker-esque, to stop Gallagher this time again, who was put in through on goal. And it was one of those ones, you could hear the excitement in Neville. He was seeing the chance, like the way you can see it in the ground, like you can't see on TV. That was clearly, there was a run. He was central, he was free, he got the ball. Queeveen's out, pure alley. Fan-fucking-tastic on 85 minutes. Heroic stuff, let's be honest. 85 minutes. Ibu did brilliantly to stop Jackson. And Gallagher fired the follow-up shot narrowly over. It's a great opportunity. He should do better. We change it up then on 86 minutes. This is quite the statement. Tsimikas, McConnell and Dans for Cody, Robbo and Mack. That's quite a thing to do. It's a ballsy thing to do, or it's a fuck this game thing to do. Whatever way your interpretation was, it was a remarkable moment. Dans is only on the pitch a couple of minutes and he takes the ball forward and has a shot saved on 88. Mudryk comes on for Jackson on 88. 6 minutes were added. And in this period, Dave, fucking hell, there was this absolute pinball moment where Queeveen makes two saves, Joe Gomez gets a block, and Ibu gets a block. 4 separate efforts, which led to a corner, which nothing accrued from. Now, you said earlier on, we were kind of riding our luck a little bit. But there's also excellence in there in terms of, when Ali makes a save and you say, right, well, you shouldn't probably dwell on that too much because that's what a good goalkeeper should do. And let's celebrate that rather than saying, oh, Liverpool were lucky. Let's just say that's really good defending. And we were really, really good at defending in this period.
We were. And it starts with the captain, who is just... We have been watching this lad play since January of 2018 for us. And obviously we watched him beforehand for Southampton and for Celtic. It's been over 6 years since he joined the club. And yet there are still just games that he has where you're still in complete awe at what you're watching. Now, he's aided and abetted by the fella next to him, who, as I've said many times, my belief is that the second best centre-back in the Premier League is Ibu Konate, who just has everything that you could ever want in a centre-back, other than he doesn't have the robust nature of staying injury-free. But when he turns in a performance like today, you'll forgive him the odd injury. Neville, to his credit, highlighted it really early, that for Liverpool, the key was going to be those two at the back and them being rock solid. And the fact that, we had all these injuries, but yet we've got those two. Like, we've got this bedrock that we can build off. We had our first choice left back starting as well, which he's declined, but, he's got great experience. He's still there. But those two, they give you a confidence that no matter what's ahead of them, they give you a confidence that we can keep a clean sheet. Now, we needed Queeveen today to step up massively. And we have criticised Queeveen a couple of times on this podcast where he's had shaky games. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to look at and give honest opinions on player performances. So when lads on Twitter want to cry about shade towards, there's no shade. There's no shade on this podcast. There never has been. We don't give shade. We outright say it. So if I want to call someone out for a poor performance, I say it by name. I don't hint at it or talk around it. I outright do it. You do the same. Jim does the same. Mo, Carl, Harry, whoever's on. That's what we do here. And if you don't like it, then maybe it's not for you and you should go and listen to something else. But we've criticised Queeving when he's deserved criticism. Today, you mentioned it was like watching Ali. The save in the first half from Palmer reminded me of the Ali save against Dries Mertens in the Champions League.
Yeah, great shot. Yeah.
And that save in the second half, Neville couldn't get over it. And it didn't give Kelleher as nearly as much praise he deserved, but he kind of talked around it. The ball comes across to Gallagher. Gallagher looks, you can see him look for the goalkeeper before the ball gets to him. And he looks down to make sure his touch is right. And when he looks up, there's a giant Cork man right in front of him, because Kelleher did that thing that Alisson does. He waits for the striker to look down at the ball, and then he charges him. So when he looks back up, the entire picture has changed. It is absolutely world-class goalkeeping from Queeving. And, for especially Trev, like we've said it before, there's always going to be a little bit of extra bias from us towards the Irish lads. You couldn't be happier for the fella today, because he's had, since he last won us this cup, he's had a rough enough time in terms of not getting enough games and whatever else, and some iffy performances. And I'm sure he reads some of the nonsense that the Bellends put out online about him. But what a performance. And you couldn't be happier for one of our own to go to Wembley, amongst all the English lads and win the cup.
To be fair to you two as well, I think you'd be the first to slag him off as well if he was being shit. So
we have,
it's exactly. So you'd be quicker to criticise him than I would, I reckon. He deserves every bit of praise for today, 100%. And you know what? When he came out at that moment as well, that's what I've written down. They shouldn't rename the cup after him at that point, because at that point we could have easily, that would have been over, wouldn't it? 5 minutes from the end or whatever. It's the way he looks. He looks like he's meant to be there, which is kind of. He's not. He's full of confidence. He knows exactly what he's doing. And when the attacker looks up, he is going to think, "Oh my God, ruined."
Jim, it's massive for us because Ali is going to be out for a longer period than we were hoping. It's massive for us that this guy is going to be walking around like a fucking giant now, and it's just brilliant. I'm conscious of the time, so we need to ball on into the second section of the second section, which is extra time. And the first half of extra time, Jim, I'll do this with you. Possession by the Baby Reds was absolutely unreal. I mean, just great. We just started off keeping the ball. We get a corner on 2 minutes. There's a chance on 3 where Dan's header is tipped over from a Virgil kind of set header across to him. We get nothing from that corner, but still retain possession. Lovely approach play from our kids. They bring on Madueke from on 5 minutes into the second half for Gallagher, who takes about 77 minutes to walk off. There's a free on the left. Nothing occurs from that. Harvey has a volley narrowly wide at the back post, the right-hand post, after a lovely flowing move. Then on 10 minutes, Tsimikas has a shot blocked after another good move. At this point, Jim, it's worth mentioning, and we'll mention it here before we go into the second half with Dave. The travelling cop were fucking immense, and it's lovely to see our own Harinder was there today, along with Guy and several other people. But Harinder was there with his kid, Daya, today, and it's just lovely to see a chance for a new generation to enjoy our next generation winning cups. Just makes it all brilliant. Virgil has a fantastic clearance from their first attack in this period on 12 minutes. And again, he's excellent on 14. Both of them led to corners. A minute was added. And on that 16th minute of the first period of extra time, Queeving Kelleher, we've already spoken about him, comes out really aware in sweeper mode and clears the ball. That is a very, very encouraging half of extra time football for so many reasons, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I written down towards the end of the normal time, Konate's been booked. I think, what was that, 82 minutes? There was still, we played 6 minutes of added time, so that was quite a long part of the game, just till the end of normal time for him to be staying on that yellow card. And yet he did some amazing stuff on that yellow card. He just knows somehow he just generally knows how far he can push things. I mean, he did get a second yellow in a recent game, but on the whole, he just knows how far to push things and keep us in games. And I think, that was one thing that Neville was saying. Why did he do that? Why did he do that? I'm thinking, well, in all honesty, he did it to keep us in the cup. But that's why he took that chance. He did it to keep us in the cup, because then, even if we're down to 10 men, we'll still be in it. If we're, you've got to do that sometimes. And it's surprising me some of the stuff Neville comes out with, because I'm sure he probably contradicts his own behaviour as a player down the years, or he should, if he played with a half a brain would have done that. But obviously, I'm thinking we're on the ropes. We're coming to the end of this now, and we really need this sort of this break. We need this minute, this chance to reset, this chance for Jurgen to just go and talk to the lads. It felt like we were worn out. But boxers on the ropes don't lose games. Boxers on the ropes get back into the corner. They get the blood mopped off their eye and all the rest of it. The coach, the coach has a word with them. The trainer has a word with them. And out they go again, and they just come out fighting and punching, and that's what we did. If this was the next round, we went out and we took the game to them. I wrote down at one point that were they playing just hoping for counter-attacks? And at first I thought maybe that's what they were doing, because it's kind of how things had worked for them at different points in the game, that they sit back, let us come at them, try and repel us, and then eventually they'll get the loose ball and can maybe break and catch us out. And as the game goes on and we're more tired, there's more chance of them doing that. But as you say, when Gallagher was taking 4 hours to go off for his substitution, I thought they're playing for pens now.
Yeah,
And to me, that was a prompt for us as players to say to each other, these are playing for fucking pens now. Let's fucking sort. Let's do it.
Pochettino has come out and said that. Pochettino has come out and said that the players. He's kind of thrown the players under the bus a little bit.
Oh, of course he
is. And said the players' energy levels were dropping. The players thought the penalties would be good for us. I don't want this podcast to end on a down note, so I'm going to say this now, because it's going to put a little bit of a dampener on our mood, but we will maybe be able to bounce back by the end of the pod. Wataru Endo went through the mixed zone of media in a protective boot with crutches.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So James Pearce has tweeted that. So obviously that's a blow, but this is incredible. Endo has started 17 games for us now. We've won 15, drawn 2, haven't lost, and have a plus 36 goal difference in those games.
Yeah, I've written down some point.
That's the best 16 million we might have spent since we paid 8 million for Robbo.
Yeah, I mean, you look at. I was going to say when this Aikido apologised to Gravenberch after the foul, and I was going to say, did Clark apologise to him for being so much better for a fraction of the money? But Endo was definitely, in terms of when you go spending money on midfielders in the summer and what you get for it and what you get for your money, Endo, there's just something about him, and he fits in that category I was talking about earlier on as well, about players who just give everything, that they fight and fight and fight. The big worry about now, you're saying Endo doing that, and I thought when McAllister went off, there was a bit of this thinking about it, is if this was the Champions League final, like Istanbul comes to mind, throwing everything at it to win this game. But with Istanbul, that was it. You've got 3 months off. But with this, you've got 3 days off. And that was my worry in this, that we were pouring everything into winning this game, and it might cost more. But I mean, I'm sure Klopp's thinking, well, never mind, we'll find someone. There'll be someone somewhere we can find.
Trainee Ollie season's about to start. He's definitely starting the weekend.
Endo's going straight into.
There's going to be a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers getting letters off parents in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. No, Endo's going straight into a cryo chamber. He'll be fine. I refuse to believe anyone can break Endo.
It could be a fashion item because they're all wearing it now.
Yeah, let's just let's just inject all the Pep Guardiola dodgy juice into him, and he'll be okay for the next game. Jim, I'll be back for your wrap-up thoughts in a second. Dave, let's finish the game, and we'll finish the show then with you after James's wrap-up thoughts. James, from now on, apparently, sir, we will conclude the game here, Dave, and you do get just the way things fell, the plum moment. One thing that Neville was saying, you're talking about how he dirtied his bib and maybe got back on. He did say repeatedly in this extra time, which Liverpool's kids were dominating, that Liverpool or Chelsea had let Liverpool off the hook. Yeah. To which I would say, fuck you, sir, because what happened there was that Liverpool's young lads played better than Chelsea. That is not Chelsea letting them off the hook. That is again, please, if you're listening to this, And if you have any interest in the world and how it's being presented to you, narrative, for the love of fuck, please understand that people are presenting you with a story. Don't always buy it. And people do. Way too many people buy his bullshit. We bring on Kwanzaa for Ibu, which is, again, you know, a big shout, because Kwanzaa was like Ibu had been basically a brick wall. 70 minutes, McConnell did very well to stop a counter. Great pressure by us on 19. Madueke did well on 20 to cut in and have a shot. Queevy gets down well to save it. Chalaba comes on for them on 22. On 23, Tsimikas has a snapshot on target that's saved. At this point, you can see Luis Diaz is basically standing and he's holding his tie. And if anyone thinks there's not going to be a Luis Diaz story about injury, then I'm sorry, but they're fooling themselves. The best case scenario was cramp. It could be worse. 25 minutes, Harvey has a back post header. It's a fucking great effort. Nodded down right at the base of the post. Really well saved by their keeper from a Tsimikas cross, who, credit where it's due, is immense when he comes on. Yeah. Really highly accurately involved in everything, involved in the goal in a minute as well. On 26, Palmer has an effort from distance, but it's pretty much straight at Queeveen, who can deal with it. Clark has a shot blocked that goes over the top that leads to a corner on 27. And here we go on 28, because on 28 minutes, again, as our pal Irish writer Declan Lynch said, and I'm bigging him up here twice today, his tweet says, with all the cheating, Virgil had to score the same goal twice. And I think that sums this up perfectly. It's not exactly the same goal in terms of the way it's executed, but it's Virgil being better than everybody, and it's a great delivery again. He angles home the header. It's fantastic. You described it beautifully earlier on, Dave. It's from a Tsimikas corner. Again, he's involved. There's pyro going off. Virgil, within a minute, is blocking a shot with his head. 3 minutes are added. I'm saying at this point in my notes, look at the travelling cop. Holy fuck. That's basically it. There are scarves getting twirled. There's pyro going. There's smoke. Palmer gets a yellow on 31. Joe Gomez starts wasting time on 31.
Beautiful time wasting from Joe Gomez.
Absolutely fucking smashing. The more of that, the better. We see afterwards loads of brilliant bits and bobs, but that's the end of the game itself. So hold off on Wembley fist bumps and sad Caicedo, and I can't wait till he leaves from Gary Neville and joint trophy lifts if you want, until your final thoughts. But just in terms of that chunk, including the goal itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is this second half of extra time with children on the pitch, actual children. We outplay Chelsea. We outplay them. They have that one little moment where the ball pinballs around, but we outplay them with Jarrell Quansah at the back, proving, as we already know, that he's more than made for these occasions, with James McConnell and Bobby Clark in midfield, along with a fella that half the people that watch Premier League football, probably more than half, had never heard of before we signed him, who was written off in September. That's our midfield. And those three are going up against Caicedo, Fernandes, and Cole Palmer dropping in, who the most overhyped player of the season. 250 million on their side, 16 million on our side. Two lads that can barely order themselves a drink at a bar, and we outplayed them, and we look dangerous. And like you said, Harvey has that opportunity. It's a really good save, and if it just breaks slightly different on the rebound, Jayden Danza's tapping home, and we're having a good laugh about the fact that a kid who's just turned 18 has just scored the winner, and now there's no stopping us. But it did seem like there was an air of inevitability, that it was going to go to penalties, and the lads on commentary had talked about it. You know, Carragher said it, the ball doesn't want to go in today, even though it had been in twice, which he just seemed to ignore. One was clearly offside. It was a perfectly good goal that we were robbed of, but we'll move past that. But the corner is perfect from Costas. The run, the header, and when it goes in, it's game over. Like, they're never scoring after that. it doesn't matter what they do, they're never going to score. You could almost see them lads. If they'd walked off the pitch when that goal went in, I actually wouldn't have blamed them, because it must be heartbreaking to get that late in the game and then concede, and then there's no chance Van Dijk is letting us score at the other end. Like, we might as well all just go home now, lads. This is over.
Yeah.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
So fitting that it's him that gets the goal. You know, the guy who is the reason we've been what we've been on the pitch for the last number of years. Like, when he arrived, everything about this team changed, and other players have come and go and been added to the mix and removed the mix and whatever. But he has just maintained this incredible level. He is the one that makes us a truly special team. He's one of the greatest footballers I've ever seen. He is physically perfect. He's everything you'd want in a centre-back. His technique, everything about him, his leadership. He's the best centre-back English football has ever seen. And I feel like I know what I'm talking about when I talk historically, because I've done the research, I've watched the games, I've gone back and spent the time watching old players play endless amounts. I've never seen a centre-back as good as him. Ever in the Premier League or anywhere else. I never thought I'd see one better than Nesta, who I always had number 2 all time behind Baresi, because Baresi had the longevity. And if you ask me now, I'd probably still leave Baresi top because he's got the longevity. But Virgil's longevity is massively underrated. He was the best centre back in England for 18 months when he was at Southampton. He's been the best centre back in England since he joined us, bar last season.
It's not over yet, Dave.
And it's not over yet. He's got years to go.
Years.
Like, Thiago Silva's 38. At no point in his career was he ever a fraction of the defender not even a fraction that Virgil has been. And Thiago Silva was very, very good for a lot of years. He's never been close to Virgil.
Can I get your take on the video that's going around of the celebration where Costas would appear to try to ride Virgil?
I think that's what he was going to do until he realised that they were at Wembley and not at the AXA. Because if it was at the AXA, he's definitely trying to ride him.
I think he's trying to slip him on there. He's grabbing up the legs. It's absolutely pornographic. And I'm absolutely... Virgil's like, forget the fuck right off you.
Costas Sindicus is as mad as a box of frogs.
He's mental.
He is crazy. But
and he did brilliantly when he came on.
He did. And here's the thing, right? So he came in when Andy Robertson hurt his shoulder, and he was outstanding. He was absolutely outstanding. And he got injured in an unfortunate way against Arsenal when Bukayo Saka kind of shoves him and he falls into Jurgen and he hurts his shoulder. That was mid-December, a week before Christmas. He's only played once since. He came on against Burnley for a run-out. The fella looked like he'd never been away. He came on, slotted straight in, largely put Madeki in his pocket, got forward, linked up with Diaz, played some good passes, played that great cross for Harvey that you highlighted, and the corner. I mean, we've always known Costas takes a good set piece. Like, it's perfect. It's exactly where Virgil wants it. It's the perfect header. And like I said, I love that camera angle as the player flashes across and glances the header back post. and you see it all the way in. And you get the goalkeeper doing the big sprawling for the camera dives, which Petrovic did a couple of them today, and knows he's not getting anywhere close to it. And that's it, like, game over. And the sheer joy in the celebrations, all of those kids piling on to Virgil, like, it was just incredible. But the highlight of the celebrations, other than Costas, is, I've put the video in the chat there, is Darwin Núñez, who's not sitting on the bench, he's sitting behind the bench, but has come down to watch the last couple of minutes or whatever, running full speed, hurdling the railing around the pitch, nearly buckling himself because his takeoff foot seems to slip on whatever he takes off, and hurdling it to get onto the grass, and just the sheer pandemonium. And I thought the Travelling Cop was unreal today. There was a moment in the second half where they started the "We've conquered all of Europe" chant. And it is bellowing around the stadium.
That's monumental.
And they're going, and they're going, and they're going. And, like, I quite like Peter Drury. I think he's a little bit overrated. I think he leans a little bit too heavily into trying to sound like he's some 16th century poet.
Yeah, he's a little bit overwrought, and he obviously has prepared his lines. And
100%. It's all written down.
Some people like that shit, and I think compared with the other fucking horrible dry balls that we used to have, he's all right.
He's
better than Fletch, you know.
He's much better than Fletch.
He's much better than the garbage we've heard from Sky for years. But I take issue. That chant from the Travelling Cop had been going on, and it is more than half the stadium is red. And it was going on for a good 2 minutes as the fans really drove energy into tired legs and lifted those players for one last push. And he starts going on about how he said there's smatterings in the Chelsea fans. Oh, the Chelsea fans are responding. And the camera pans over, and they're all just stood there looking around. Like, there was no noise from them at that time. He said it's a din now. It was like they only have one chant. It's Chelsea, Chelsea.
But they have two. They also like to sing about one of our players falling over in a game.
Yeah.
Do anything for them, you know.
A fella who hasn't played for us in 9 years. They sing about him all the time. Even when they're not playing us, they sing about him.
Yeah, the one who turned them down twice, that one.
Yeah, that fella. The fella that, like, you know, killed Mourinho's hopes of a Champions League win when he's in Chelsea. That guy. They don't have any songs. They don't have any culture. They don't have anything about them.
You got no fans.
What a man! You know, he was in the Palace in Navan once.
I saw those photographs.
But, like, he tries to say that it's both ends making that noise. That the din, as he described it, was purely the Liverpool fans.
It's all our lot. It's all
our lot.
Well, loud. Everything from the start to the end, anything that happened, we were well. When the teams were being read out, you could hear that in the background as the commentators were talking, and you could hear a little bit of cheering from them. When our lot get read out, every single player was like the roof was raised.
Even when the subs were made, and Gallagher goes off, and Chilwell, their captain of the day, goes off, and whatever, it's a smattering of applause. Our lads go off, and the roof is lifting off the place, as our players have been let know how appreciated they are. Absolutely unbelievable. And I like to think that right at the heart of that today was our absent producer, Mr. Guy Drinkle, who travelled down from the Great North. I assume he jumped on one of the Viking boats or whatever, coming out of Iceland this morning, and made his way to London and led the charge in terms of keeping the place bouncing.
You know it. I'll be back to you to finish the show in a second, Jim. Let's get your wrap-up thoughts on all that this means, watching the main man fist bumping in Wembley, listening to Gary Neville admit that he can't wait until Jurgen Klopp leaves, looking at our joint trophy lift, seeing Kloppo jumping around like a fucking demented teenager, like can't contain his excitement. Let's put on hold all the hopeful conversations about could we possibly convince them. Let's just forget about that. Let's focus on what we can do and what is yet to be done and what can be done. And what today meant, man.
Yeah. I I mean, just quickly, actually, on the Chelsea fans, I've written Chelsea fans getting annoyed, and that was probably the most I noticed to them, and that in itself says a lot. Here we are, the kids, we're worn out. It's about 18, 19 minutes into extra time, and basically their fans are just turning on them, whereas our lot are just constantly with our players and just shouting and shouting and shouting and singing and singing and singing. If one fan has got a voice now, I mean, if you try to get Guy on the phone now to do a 1 minute sort of summary of what's happened today, you wouldn't actually get any voice from him, I'm sure. And it'd be the same with most of them who were there today, who were lucky enough to be there today. I echo your thoughts as well with her, young kids getting to see what we've seen, and instead of us sort of saying to young kids, this is what we had, this is how it was for us, you have to believe me because I can't prove it to you, they can actually see it. And I summed it up at the end. I just wrote down emotional, because that's how I felt at the time. I think if we'd have been doing some like live commentary or something, I'd probably had to go very quiet then, because I did feel really emotional. I really wanted to see Klopp win it. I really wanted for us to win it, and I really wanted those kids to win it. And my last word was fucking hell, because it was just one of those moments. And I've said already tonight, this cup gets played down a lot, but it means so much. This is the ultimate reason you become a fan. This is what gets you into football. This is the dream, to see your lads holding some piece of shiny stuff up above their heads and ticker tape going off in the background. I mean, there's loads of good fun about being a fan on the route to these places and to these moments. And there's obviously a lot of bad times when it doesn't quite work out that way, as Chelsea fans have found out again tonight. But this is why you're a fan. This is what gets you into it. If you didn't have the hope of these moments, I'm saying you wouldn't be a fan, but then I think about people like Stoke fans. But, it must be what you dream about. Even England fans dream of moments like this, as bad as they are. It's such... We had that horrible news not long ago from Klopp that he was going to call it a day for us, and it echoes the time before. I don't remember it too well, but I can remember seeing the vox pops of Shankly resigning. And the reason that was such a shock to people then was because this man had led us to so many bits of silverware, had given us all of these moments, these memories, these amazing occasions. As it was, we got Paisley in, and the story continued and continued and continued. But it did kind of come to an end. And although we had these little smatterings of good moments under Jed and under Rafa, it kind of went away. We never got back to that, but we are getting back to that. And I say getting, the only reason I'm saying getting back is because we've not strung consecutive league titles together yet and stuff like that. But and sadly, Klopp's not going to be the one that's going to get us a consecutive league title unless some miracle happens and he does change his mind. But in a way, Klopp might be the one that gets us that consecutive league title because he's set this up. And no wonder he was proud. Van Dijk was like the dad of the kids to the kids. Klopp was like the granddad to the kids, and maybe Costas was trying to make more kids, but but he was just looking on Klopp as this proud dad, but not looking on. He was part of it, and it feels like the baton's being handed over. I mean, I think the commentator used something about I can't remember what he said now, his final hurrah or something. And someone who's in the room with me at the time said, it's not his final one. He's used to go, yeah. And it's the last stretch of his final moments now. But my God, can you imagine if we win all four? I think it's a tall order now, given what's going to be left of us for playing in the FA Cup in the midweek. But I mean, this is the way to start things off. We're still top of the league. All those other clubs this weekend sat there wondering, would we mess up in the League Cup final? We didn't. All those clubs trying to win the league couldn't overtake us this weekend, even though we didn't play, because we're already ahead of them. It's not over yet. There's a long way to go. But if this sends out any message to people, it's, just don't underestimate Liverpool. And in all honesty, if you're going to come up against Liverpool, you might want to just not raise your hopes that you're going to get anything out of us, because you're only going to get hurt. That's how it feels. It's dangerous to feel this way. It almost feels like we're unbeatable. We are the Terminator. We can't be stopped. We can be. We've got to put everything in. But that's the thing I thought about today. If we play the way we can and react to situations that happen in the game the way that we normally do, we will win today. And we did. We reacted to questionable refereeing, to more injuries, to having to play with kids, to weird offside decisions and all the rest of it. We reacted. We got the goal in the back of the net at the end, thanks to Virgil, and we came out winners. And we now have that trophy back in our very rarely out of use trophy cabinet.
We will win if we do that. every day. That's just the thing. And it is unique. Jim, during the week, you'll no doubt have a go at having a chat about this with Jay. Anything else you want to tell people about?
No, well, I was on the Red All Over the Land YouTube the other day. That's and I've written an article for the fanzine Red All Over the Land. I mean, Red All Over the Land, the fanzine, that's the last Liverpool fanzine left, the last printed fanzine, and it's kind of what I think paved the way for places like us, people like us, places like this now, where fans get to talk about what's going on because we get to say what we feel. We're not driven by an agenda because we've got to sell newspapers. We're not having to keep some editor happy who might support some other team. We're not putting a spin on things. We've not even got to be impartial, even though I know you were today, Trev, very impartial. We've not. I mean, it is fans, and even if we don't always agree with each other, we're all coming up with our reasons and our decisions and our opinions and our complaints for the same reason ultimately, which is because we want the club to be better than ever and to stay good as long as it can be. So I was glad to write for them. And it's the 300th edition, which is quite something. And interestingly, their first edition came out just after a derby game in the 95-96 season. Liverpool had lost that day and Everton still haven't won. I mean, we're talking about the age of the kids today. I mean, their grandparents probably were not born.
Do you want to know a fun stat that Andy Wales has given me?
Go on.
The last time Everton won a cup, Jayden Dan's father was 13 years of age.
Exactly. It's mad. I mean, my youngest is now an adult. She's left uni. She's done a master's, and they won a trophy. 6 years before she was born or something? You know, it's unreal. And of course, mentioning Everton, I'm sure we'll have lots to say about them as well. We will do a Scouser Thomas. We're hoping to get one done on Thursday, all being well, if we can wait that long. Because, you know, it's something good to crow about, isn't it, this? And I'm sure when Jay gets into work this week, it's going to be very quiet in the blue corner.
Yeah, that Jayden Dan stat, I think he's won more trophies in 47 minutes than Everton have won since 1995. That's also a good stat. Jim, fantastic. We look forward to you and Jay having a chat and point everyone over towards what I think is affectionately known as the rattle to read your contribution there. Dave, take us home. Your last thoughts.
I'd just like to urge everybody to support the rattle if you're in and around the city ever. Make sure you pick up a copy, follow the YouTube channel, and just, you know, because we can't lose fan media. We can't lose independent fan media, not that which is funded by, you know, people with agendas. You've got to support this type of stuff. I said at the start, I just couldn't be prouder of this group of players. I'm in awe of what we've watched. A group of kids going toe-to-toe with, you know, as Gary Neville called them, and this is the moment I mentioned that he redeemed himself a little bit for me, when he called them the blue billion-pound bottle jobs. It's just so true. They've lost. Chelsea have now lost their last 6 domestic cup finals, which is quite a staggering record. And obviously 3 of them have now been to Jurgen's mighty Reds. If we are to win the lot, we will play another 23 games this season, which is incredible considering we're so far through the season and today was our 40th game. If there is a competition you might be okay to not win, it's probably the FA Cup. But I still want us to beat Southampton purely because what that will do is it will push the Everton game back beyond the international break and allow us to get Alisson, Curtis Jones and Trent back and maybe even Jota by the time that game gets rescheduled. But what we do know is that we will play Southampton in the week. I think Jurgen thought the game was on Tuesday and was having a little bit of a meltdown about it, but was told the game was Wednesday and he seemed to be pacified by that. Then I'd imagine we'll play a lot of kids in that game. Then we'll play Nottingham Forest in the league in what is a massively important game for us. And we should have Szoboszlai, who by his own admission felt like he could have played today. The medical staff held him back. We will have Darwin Núñez almost certainly, who looked like he was either auditioning to play in the next game or auditioning for some sort of
World War I drama over the top.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we may well have Mo Salah back as well. So, you know, to get those 3 back would be massive. And the thing is, this will do massive amounts of good to the confidence and belief of those young players that played today, of Jurgen and his belief that whatever he puts out on the pitch, that they can get the job done. All roads lead to Liverpool right now. The title at the moment, because of how the league table looks, the title goes through us. And we have a chance. And if we are fortunate enough and good enough to beat City at home in a couple of weeks, that will give us another massive boost. But I genuinely think the lads today, every one of them, will take so much confidence from today that it is going to galvanise us even further. And like you said, Trev, I mean, Endo, he'll just lob that foot off and get himself another one somewhere and he'll be grand. He'll be fine to play the next
screw-on version.
That's it. He's absolutely fine. Endo today, I think 12 tackles won and 12 ball recoveries. Pretty spectacular. Just look, the bottom line is that the good gang of lads beat the bad gang of lads and won the cup.
Dave Hendrick is a tremendous set of lads in and of himself. He will do 7 million podcasts this week. You don't need to outline what they are because everybody knows it's going to be Daily Red. It's going to be two-footed. There's going to be scouted. There's going to be a Raw coming awfully soon. Because
there's going to be Buzz. Let's not forget the most important thing we're doing right now is Buzz podcast. There'll be at least a couple of them.
Seeing as we've got you all audience captured there, you fuckers, there's going to be buzz. And if you're not listening to it, listen to the fucking show, will you? We talk about movies, we talk about TV. We've done a complete compendium for True Detective Season 4. We've got several banger movies, including a 2-part special of Ireland's greatest / worst movie ever. That's me, that's Dave, that's Jim. Listen, this has been massively enjoyable, and surprise, surprise, because it is the three of us, we've gone to a raw record length of 1 hour 47 minutes as we speak. And Nina Kauser is saying, any sign of Raw on the live WhatsApp? I'm so sorry, Nina. We're going to finish now. It's been emotional. It's been fantastic to share the experience with Jim, with Dave. I've been Trev. This is Raw. Up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.